right now, the Knicks essentially have all options on the table. They have explored the trade market, going after guys like Walker Kessler, Nick Richards. Looking at Leon Rose, he went out and he traded for Mikal Bridges. He re-signed OG Anunoby. If he's able to bring in specifically Walker Kessler, this would be the greatest offseason in Knicks history, in my opinion. It would establish them as the best team in the league to go at the Boston Celtics, because now you've got one of the best rim protectors in the league, one of the best interior efficient scorers in the league, despite being just 22 years old. I mean, Kessler, he's just overall exactly what the Knicks are looking for. He was all rookie first team his first season in the league. Last season, didn't play too many minutes. His starts were significantly down, but he still went out there, had over 2 blocks a game, 8.1 points, 7.5 rebounds. You look at Kessler's per 36, 12.5 points, 11.6 rebounds, and 3.7 blocks. The biggest question mark here is going to be, what would it cost the Knicks? Because the Jazz are rebuilding, and even though there's been numerous reports that they are taking calls for Kessler and would be willing to trade him at the right price, Danny Ainge is the general manager there, and the last time we saw the Knicks and the Jazz discuss a trade, the Knicks offered Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, and 2 unprotected first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell. And whether or not you think that's enough for Mitchell is really besides the point, because it was reported by Woj that the Jazz didn't even call the Knicks back after they agreed to a trade with the Cavs to give the Knicks a chance to offer more, right? So clearly Danny Ainge just has something against the Knicks. So if he does trade Walker Kessler here, you'd have to imagine there's going to be multiple first-round picks on the table, some sort of salary filler, because the Knicks, they traded a bunch of unprotected picks to the Nets. Okay, so here is the picks that the Knicks can trade in a deal for Walker Kessler. So they do have 2 protected first-round picks in 2025 from the Detroit Pistons and Washington Wizards, though both seem unlikely to convey, and they can offer some pick swaps with Utah. Overall, the Knicks just don't really have a lot to give up right now after the Bridges trade, so that's my only concern here, not to mention Danny Ainge. But if they were to get Kessler, his cap hit is $2.9 million this upcoming season. After that, it's $4.9 million, so he'd be cheaper than Precious Achiuwa, and he has obviously a lot more to offer than Precious because he's 7 foot, about 245 pounds, and he can protect the rim, he can finish at the rim. I've also even seen him stretch the floor. I mean, looking at these clips, you could see he's shooting some threes in them, so overall, he would just be the perfect fit to this team. Another reason why Kessler would be a great fit here is because opponents shot just 46% against Kessler last season, which was 12th among big men who appeared in over 50 games. He also was only 1 year removed from finishing 20th in the NBA in defensive BPM. Coach Thibodeau prioritizes rim protection. That's the most important thing to his defense. Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein was one of the more elite rim protectors last season. So to bring in Kessler, he would exactly fit the mold of what Tibbs is trying to build. The only thing about Kessler when comparing him to Hartenstein is that obviously he's not the offensive rebound as Hartenstein, and obviously he doesn't finish in the pick and roll like Hartenstein. He's not the passer as Hartenstein. The Knicks are not going to be able to replicate that at the price that they can afford. But Kessler, I mean, Thibodeau, he ends up coaching Hartenstein, and he ends up getting $30 million next season, about $29 million on average annually for his AAV. So what's he going to be able to do with Walker Kessler, a guy who was first team all rookie, a guy who has all the upside in the world? He's got more size than Hartenstein. He's a better defender. But again, I just don't really see this being a realistic trade because of the asking price and because of Danny Ainge. The last time the Knicks and the Jazz tried to make a trade, it didn't even work out, and that was with Mitchell wanting to be in New York, so probably not going to happen. But for Nick Richards, coming off of a career year, 67 games for the Hornets, started 51 of them. He averaged 9.7 points, 8 rebounds, and 1.1 blocks while shooting 69.1% from the field. He's only 26 years old. Richards is another cheap option for the Knicks. He has a 2-year contract as of right now. Originally it was a $15 million contract over 3 years, which means that he's going to be making $5 million, of course, over the next 2 seasons. And with the Knicks budget right now, they simply just can't afford much more than that because, again, OG's got paid, Brunson's getting extended, Randall's getting extended, and then we've got guys like Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo, Miles McBride, and Mitchell Robinson all under contract. So we just don't have much wiggle room, especially after OG got that $226 million. Looking at the Hornets, I mean, right now, I'm not sure if they would trade Richards. If the price was right, I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, he's a guy who, again, was valuable to them last season, but if they can get, let's say, a first-round pick for a 26-year-old center that is solid, not great. I mean, that's pretty much Richards. I look at him as a solid option, a guy who can just basically not make us worse when he comes in the game, and if he can just keep us afloat, not be like Jericho Sims where he comes in, for example, and is a -10 in 8 minutes played or something like that. And I don't mean to pick on Jericho Sims, but he's just a raw center. He's extremely raw, and the Knicks can't afford to play anyone in the rotation right now that's raw, which is why these rookies probably won't play much of an impact. Tyler Colquitt's a guy that I could see playing an impact because he's a little bit older for a rookie, 23, and he just fits the modern day point guard. He's basically a TJ McConnell. I think he could play an impact. But overall, anyone outside of that, I just don't think is very realistic to be a part of a rotation. Other options, Mo Wagner can space the floor. He's extremely efficient, and he's coming off a season with 11 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 1.2 assists in 80 games. I mean, maybe that's not the best way to phrase it. I don't know if he's necessarily better than Walker Kessler, but for him to come off of our bench, he was with the Magic, who again were a team that were pushing for the top of the Eastern Conference, not with Boston, but they were in it to the finish, of course, trying to get that 2 seed with the Knicks. And Wagner he'd be a good fit for us because of his ability to shoot and rebound. He's probably just the best overall fit for us because he's a free agent versus us having to trade multiple first round picks or something like that. Robert Williams is a guy who is on a cheap contract. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Defensively would be amazing for us. Precious, the Knicks still own his bird rights right now. They could still bring him back. Walker Kessler would be cheaper though, and actually Richards would as well. So to that point, it's like, why even bring back Precious if you can get a guy who has more size and overall capability at that backup 5? We talked about Jericho Sims. He's just not a guy who's ready to be the backup center right now. Taj Gibson, Daniel Tice, Tristan Thompson, absolutely not. I mean, come on. Overall, it's clear to me that the Knicks have a plan. They entered the offseason at the center position knowing that Isaiah Hartenstein probably was not going to re-sign because the Knicks just simply could not afford him. They didn't have the right bird rights to be able to even bring him back. Not to mention they had to re-sign OG. They had to go out there and extend Jalen Brunson, which is coming soon. Julius Randle will be next. Mikal Bridges was a guy that I'm sure they've had their eyes on for a while now because he's just the perfect fit to this roster. He comes across the bridge. But the biggest question mark for the Knicks is not backup center because at the end of the day, they can bring back Precious. They already have brought back Jericho Sims. It's Mitchell Robinson. If Mitchell Robinson can't stay healthy, we're not winning a championship. We're not winning anyway. So, yeah, we can sit up here and talk about the backup big, but the backup big, I mean, technically speaking, if we get Walker Kessler and you throw him into the starting lineup to replace Mitch, then yeah, I mean, maybe the Knicks don't get worse, but do we really think we're getting Walker Kessler? I don't, but I didn't think we were getting Bridges, so I guess that's not a fair point. But the backup big, it doesn't really matter because they just have to come in and play 10 to 15 minutes a game and rebound, protect the rim. They don't need to be able to shoot, being honest. They just have to be able to play the role.